Gundam Seed is an action button bashing hack and slash hybrid shooter game released in 2003 for the PlayStation 2. The gameplay is simple but fun. Within 5 minutes of you playing, you would have grasped the controls and gameplay down. There are two types of gameplay, one of which is a side-scrolling run and gun beat 'em up action type. This involves you mostly running right across the screen, taking on upcoming enemies that also come from the left and even the background. You can jump, shoot and use melee attacks. You can also block attacks by holding circle down. You can also switch targets by pressing R1, which will allow you to aim at enemies in the background. You also have a special attack if you press circle, triangle and square at the same time. This will take some HP off your life bar though, so it's not something to be needlessly throwing out unless you really need to. It's possible for you to dash and air dash by simply pressing the D-pad twice quickly in the one same direction. You essentially have two life bars. Your first one is actually your phase shift armor. This is tied to any striker system you might have equipped. So if that bar is depleted, you will lose that striker system, and then your second life bar will start to decrease with any more hits you take. I will talk about the striker system later. Near your score you will see something that says OS, which stands for operating system. Now this goes up each time you reach a certain higher threshold in your score. When it's activated you will go into C mode. You'll be covered in this red aura and become invincible for a short period of time. You'll also gain more points for every enemy you destroy while in C mode. I wondered why a game like this didn't have any kind of power-ups etc to collect, as it screams out for something like that. But it's all about getting that higher score, not just for bragging rights, but because reaching those higher rank scores will give you energy and phase shift armor back every time you activate another level in your operating system and enter C mode. I believe the max operating system level was 10, but getting to that requires a massive score and therefore skill, but it only pushes you to get that much better at the game. By the time you start mission 3, you'll be able to choose what striker system pack you want to take out. This is kind of like choosing between 3 different characters to play with, as each striker system has its own set of moves and combos. I personally just love using the sword strike, because of its giant sword that reminds me of Guts from Berserk. Later in the game you'll also get to use the Freedom Gundam. Now while you could easily button bash your way to glory in this game, if you look deeper you would see that the game actually has a chain combo system. There are quite a few different combos for you to learn. You also have quarter circle, forward square or triangle special moves at your disposal. All of your offensive skills are more than enough for you to handle what the game throws at you. All of the controls feel tight, so any mistakes will be your own doing. This is one of them games where you will have to keep an eye on the background as you switch from fighting enemies on your plane and then those coming in from the background. It starts off pretty simple, but the further you get into the game the more hectic it becomes, and you will find yourself having to juggle fighting on both fields. It really is a fun challenge, but the game does give you fair warning of when bullets from the background are heading your way. Now the second type of gameplay is on-rail shooter type a la Panzer Dragoon or Sin and Punishment. It's nowhere near the level of those games, but it still is decent. You have all the controls and whatnot that I mentioned before. You can't do any multiple lock-ons though. Graphically it's a bit of a simplistic looking game, but that's fine. It probably didn't have a big budget anyway. It's not an ugly game to look at, so that's all that matters. The game doesn't suffer from any bad frame rates and it all animates well. The cutscenes are something that you would normally see in a novel type of game. It also has in-game graphic cutscenes, sometimes mixing up the two. And on top of that, there is a lot of animation footage used from the actual TV show to tell you the story too. I haven't watched Gundam Seed since it originally aired, but this game is based on that show, which is set in the Cosmic Era, where a war between two factions has been ongoing for years between natural humans and genetically engineered humans, known as coordinators, represented mostly by the ZAF military organization, whereas the natural humans are represented by the Earth Alliance. You play as Kira Yamato, the main character from the show, who is also a coordinator. He finds himself thrown into a war that ends up with a whole lot of twists and turns along the way. Now this game only goes up to the end of the first season, which if you were to watch it now would be the halfway point, where Kira has a showdown with his childhood friend Atheron. This is why the game feels short. It's not the entire story. You could probably beat the game in roughly an hour or less if you skip the cutscenes. It's not really a big deal, as games like this are more about replay value. Like I said, it's been some years since I watched Seed, but I don't remember some of this music being in the show. It seems like it was originally done for the game. It has almost this shoot 'em up style music, which I guess is appropriate considering the game feels like an old school game you played back in the arcade glory days. When you beat the game, you unlock Versus mode and a time attack mode. In Versus mode, you can pick to play as other mobile suits you had to fight during the main game. The controls are still the same. It's a nice added bonus if you want to play against your friends. The level design of the game is a tad boring. It could have done with more platform type levels to make it more intriguing. Even though there are more than enough enemies on the screen to keep you busy, I feel like the game could have done with maybe 2 or more levels to hit that sweet spot in length, especially after you got access to the Freedom Gundam, or maybe you could have played the game through a game from Afron's perspective. The box and manual for the game are really nicely presented. I like what they did with the DVD, turning it into a Harrow. The manual shows off the main mobile suits and their move lists. All in all, Gundam Seed for the PS2 is a decent game. It's not amazing, but for a licensed tie-in anime game, I think it was a good effort. If you're into run and gun games like Contra or shoot 'em ups, you might find some enjoyment out of this. If you're a Seed fan, then I would say definitely pick this up as well. It's a very cheap game to buy, and it's worth its current low asking price.